Haribol.
Basically, in this book, I have taken the verses of the Bhagavad Gita and instead of seeing them as sources of wisdom, taken them as inspirations for prayers. So each of these verses, there is a picture of a deity of Krishna, and there is a one-line summary prayer, which is like a spiritual affirmation. And then there is a poetic translation of the words of the Gita. And then we have the prayer. There is a reflection of that. Actually, let's go to the previous one. The page 13. So, I request some of you to read some of these prayers partially. Let's begin first with some prayers ourselves. Om Jnana Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Krishnaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asha Pradeshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhuveracha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Understand your word will come closer to the Holy words. Okay. So you can repeat after me. With you, my Lord. There are no dead ends. So if you're comfortable, you can repeat the verse after me. Because you can also hear it. That's also uplifting. Nachaitatvidmah kataranno gariyo. Yadva jayema yadivano jayeyu. Yaneva hatva najijivishaman. Te avasthitaha pramukhe dhartarashtraha. We do not know which fate is best, to win or fall in this cruel test. Those whom we wish not to slay stand armed against us in this fatal fight. Who would like to read? Okay, one paragraph. Yes, please.
My dear Lord, when I find myself at a dead end, let me remember that my vision is limited, but your wisdom knows no bounds. No problem is too big for you to solve, even when I am so small that I cannot even conceive of a solution, let alone implement one.
Thank you. So, generally, the broad topic I'm going to talk about today is perceiving Krishna's love for us. When we go through life, broadly, for most of us, life is sooner or later, it is challenging. Challenging because sometimes what happens to us is bad. Sometimes this problem comes, that problem comes. And while what happens to us is bad, and that is troubling. But along with that, many times what happens through us is also bad. Means we ourselves get angry and speak words that we regret. We take impulsive decisions. We all, if we look back at our life, there are times when we have done things that we are not proud of. So when our vision is only limited to this, that I am here and I am facing the world, and the world does bad things to me, and sometimes I myself do bad things which mess things up. So it's a very discouraging and eventually disorienting view of life. So at such times, people turn towards God. Maybe there is some higher being in charge, and that higher being can help stop bad things from happening to me, or that higher being can help me stop doing bad things. It can be both ways. So basically, through both of these ways, when we are here, we may turn upwards towards some higher reality. We turn upwards, and we are facing the world. Maybe there is some bigger reality, and maybe that reality can help us in some way. That's how we turn towards God, turn towards Krishna. And sometimes in our life, we just face what seems like a dead end. That is what Arjuna is facing right now. What is Arjuna facing at the start of the Bhagavad Gita? It is that he has to fight a war. And there are many different kinds of bad things that can come upon a person. There are two words: adversity and atrocity. How many of you think there's a difference between these two words, adversity and atrocity? How many of you think there's a difference? Okay. How many of you think there's no difference? Okay. How many of you think the difference does not make any difference? Okay. So, what is the difference between adversity and atrocity?
Adversity is something which is done to us from outside. Atrocity is what we do on something.
Okay. So, and that's one way of looking at it. It's a logical follow from what I said before. But then can atrocity happen to us also?
Yes.
Then what would be the difference between them, if that were the case?
I think adversity is a difficulty and atrocity is like a calamity. It's more extreme than adversity.
So atrocity is more extreme.
Yeah.
That's true. Anything more? Any reason why it is more extreme?
Something outside of our control.
They both are out of our control.
Atrocity, someone deliberately does something to you. Adversity
Yeah.
can just be general.
Yes, adversity is more, it's only the cause, this is natural. Adversity is if our power supply goes away. Atrocity is if we come to know our neighbor cut off our power. So, adversity and atrocity. Now if you look at the lives of the Pandavas, are most of you familiar with the basic story of the Mahabharata that way?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll give you some of the points of the story. But if you consider the Pandavas, then they experienced some adversities, some atrocities. So what was the adversity, for example? Something bad happened to them right in the childhood.
Lost their father.
Yes, they lost their father. That is the adversity. And what was the atrocity? Sorry?
They lost the kingdom.
The
whole empire was vanished.
The atrocity was, and there's a conspiracy to burn them alive. That's the adversity. So adversity is natural, atrocity is more intentional. And the difference is that how can anyone do something like this? Bad bad things can happen, but when somebody is doing bad things, it just shakes our faith in people, it shakes our faith in our capacity to judge people, it shakes our faith in humanity itself. How can anyone be so cruel, so heartless, so monstrous? So atrocity can scar people. Generally, when nowadays there's a lot of concern about trauma and traumatic memories and traumatic injuries happening from certain bad incidents happening in life. So trauma is not just because of some bad thing happening. If somebody does something bad, and that's very difficult to hear. So now, these two are both things that happen to us. For a responsible person, there is a third pain, which is actually even worse. And you can call that as agony. Now, agony, in this context, what it means is that something bad has to be done by us. Sometimes life puts us in a place where we just have no good choices. So I had a friend who's a doctor. There was a pandemic in India. He was telling that he had many patients and he had only finite number of oxygen support. Now there are two patients, for example. You have only one oxygen cylinder to put. And neither of the patients we know what is the history. If we give the oxygen cylinder to one patient, the other patient is going to die. But even the patient to whom we give, if that person has had some past complicated history, which is not available now, with so many patients, we don't have access to the records or whatever, then even that person may die. So it's like there's no good choice, both are bad choices. And especially for a responsible person. For a person who is irresponsible, okay, just do what you take, do whatever, what you feel like you do to get over it. But for a responsible person who is aware that my choices are going to have consequences, and someone is going to suffer, that's agony. And that agony is extremely difficult to bear. So Arjuna has adversities and atrocities happening to him. But now what he's facing is agony. Agony is where now he has to do something which is bad. What is the bad thing he has to do? Fight.
Kill his kids, relatives.
Kill the kids, kill the relatives. Especially for him, it is the Kauravas, it is the Pandavas on the opposite side of the Kauravas. So among the Kauravas, there are some people who are extremely important for him. Who are they? Bhishma and Drona. Bhishma and Drona. So sometimes if we go for a get together, an event, there are some people we look forward to it. So you're talking with everyone and looking when this person will come. And although that person might be just one among 100, but that person stands out to our eyes, one among 100. So for Arjuna, when Krishna brings his chariot in between, what happens is, for him, Bhishma and Drona, their chariots are most prominent. Bhishma Drona Pramuktaha Sarvesham cha Mahikshitam. And for Arjuna, Bhishma and Drona are not just elders. These are the elders from whom he learned archery. These are the elders for whose pleasure he learned archery. And now he has to use that same archery knowledge to kill those very elders. Till the last moment, there's a part of Arjuna which hoped that Bhishma and Drona would not fight on the opposites. He knew the war was inevitable. Krishna had gone as a peace messenger. And in spite of that, the war was going to happen. But he had hoped that Bhishma and Drona would not fight on the opposites. And finally, when he saw that they were ready to fight, and they were fierce, they were leading the army. And that's when he just couldn't take it. If he fights, he has to kill Bhishma and Drona and many others. Now, if he doesn't fight, it's not just that he will lose the kingdom. It's also that Duryodhan is going to target his family. He's going to destroy them. Even if somehow Bhishma, Drona, Dhritarashtra stop them from targeting him. But then what is going to happen? Afterwards, Duryodhana will target all those who have allied with the Pandavas. Because before the war started, it was both sides were trying to get allies from the various kings. So Duryodhana was a mean person. I will teach all those you chose this side, you chose that side, I'll teach you a lesson for that. Persecute them. So recently when this whole Ukraine-Russia war started, not a Ukraine-Russia war, it's America-Russia war, Ukraine as the Shikhandi. But it's not that Ukraine is shooting the arrow, Ukraine is receiving the arrow actually. So anyway, but the thing is that there are countries which did not support America. And then India was one of the countries. And America tried to impose with various things, some diplomats from India and some Middle East countries who are very closely allied to America. They were persecuted, some trumped up charges. And so there was some vengeance taken because India did not support. So now this is geopolitics. So now Arjuna will have to live with that. That will be painful. So he just had no good choice. And that is when, whatever path we take ahead, there's just no good choice. That's when we start questioning, what's in the point of living? There's a God, where is that God? Does a God even hear me? Does a God protect me? What's going on? So, at that time, how do we see the hand of God? How do we see the love of God in the situation? Let's look at that. Who would like to read the next paragraph? Any of the ladies would like to read? Yes, please. We'll come back to you.
When life brings me to a place where I see the path ahead at all, or when every path that I see leads only to a far worse situation, I find myself utterly unable to avoid distress.
Yes. So distress can come in various ways. And all of these are forms of distress. Now, which of these is most painful? Yes and no. Agony is objectively speaking more painful. But for us, when we are going through pain, whichever form of pain we are presently going through feels the most painful. That is the nature of pain. This feels unbearable. So, we will try to look today, we will go over a broad outline of the story of the Mahabharata and try to see how Krishna can act in various ways and how we need to be able to see the signals, see the signs that convey Krishna's protection. So I'll use the acronym PROTECT and talk about basically 7 incidents, 7 broad ways in which things work out for us. And we need to learn to also see that it's not just that we can see God's love, we have to learn to train our eyes to see God's love. So this will be more or less, we'll be going out chronologically through the various incidents of the Mahabharata and to see how things work out. Now the first P is providence. Providence means some divine arrangement, some things just work out. Now, basically, the first major bad thing that happens to the Pandavas, not the adversity, but subsequently was that Bhima was poisoned by Duryodhana. And the wisest thing to do at that time, Duryodhana was just a teenager. And some people try to give a very subversive narrative of the epics. And sometimes they say, oh, actually the Kauravas are misunderstood. Kauravas are also good people. Duryodhana was a good person, but Shakuni spoiled him. Well, not really. Duryodhana came up with this whole scheme without much involvement of Shakuni. So it was not that Duryodhana was a good person, Shakuni made him bad. Duryodhana was a bad person and Shakuni made him worse. So he came up with this whole plan. And he got as a king, the kings have access to various weapons, and poison is also a weapon. It's not that poison is easily available on the countertop. And this was a very discreet poison. See, the Pandavas were also warriors. You know. They had no reason to suspect the Kauravas right now. But they were not naive. So he could not get a poison that would immediately smell like poison, or that would visibly change the color of food and Bhima would notice it. And so he got a special poison by pressuring the person in the royal court who was there were specialists in various fields. So there is poison specialists also. There is one book in the Vedic tradition. There are like 750 kind of poisons are there. And different kinds of poison work in different ways. They would use as weapons. So he got a special poison which would be slow acting. Because if the poison is immediately, you eat something and you die. And it's obvious, it's food poisoning. So the way they planned it would be that they would feed him and he would say, oh Bhima, even though then sometimes they were rivals, both of them physically well built. There's some tension among us, I want us to be friends, so I have prepared a special feast for you. I'll feed you. And fed him the feast, and then Bhima just fell asleep. And at first the poison would make him fall asleep, and then they tied him up. They threw him into the water. He got some of his brothers, and they all threw him into the water. And they expected he would drown. But the way providence worked was that in that river there were certain snakes. And those snakes saw who's being there is coming and they started biting them. And fortunately, the snake bite acted as an antidote for the poison which Bhima had been given. Now we could say, it's so terrible that something like this happened. That just a teenager was poisoned like that. You can look at that, no doubt. But then we look at that also. How Duryodhana could have chosen any of the poison that he had, but he chose this particular poison, and the snakes that bit Bhima countered that poison. So in general, in our life, if we expect our bhakti or our relationship with Krishna to transform our life and our world into some kind of a, what is that called? Like a Disneyland or La La Land or Lollipop Land or something like that, where there are no problems in life. That is not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So the way we see the hand of God is not in the absence of problems, in the absence of dangers. There will always be dangers in life, that's just the facts of life. So if we expect life to be safe, how could something like this happen to me? Then we will never be able to see the hand of God. But it is the presence of means to deal with the danger. The means to face danger. So, how did that means come up? That means came up by providence. Things could have worked out in 100 wrong ways, but it just worked out right. So, coincidence is sometimes said to be God's ways of staying anonymous. For each one of us, the choice is that this bad thing happened to me, and why did this happen? Or this bad thing happened to me, but I also had this particular means by which to deal with this bad thing. And if we focus on the danger, then we will become resentful. Why does danger come upon us? But if we focus on the means to face danger, then even amid danger, we will be grateful. So the first point is providence. We can look at our own lives. Something bad happens, and then if we fixate on the bad, then more bad happens. Okay, now this bad has happened, how can I deal with it? If we focus on that, then we slowly find some ways to deal with it. So, I've told this incident many times. Most of you have seen that I have polio. I need crutches for walking. So when I was 1, my mother took me to a clinic to get a polio vaccine. But somehow that particular clinic had a poor power supply because we were in a small town. and because of the power supply, the fridge which contained that vaccine had its temperature elevated. And because of that, the germ percentage in the vaccine increased. And that vaccine was given to me. Instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of it. I was about 1, I was learning to walk, I fell down, and I couldn't walk normally without support after that. But my first memory of that is about I was 2.5 or 3. And a distant relative had come to our home, and she was consoling my mother. It's so sad, your son got polio. And sometimes people may want to console, but in consoling, actually they remind you of what has happened. And then, rather than consoling, it just becomes more annoying, irritating, it just becomes painful. But anyway, I remember when that happened, my mother's voice was so calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. I don't know why my mother said that at that time, but somehow that stayed with me. Not the God part, the intellectually part initially said, the God part came later. But somehow that stayed with me, and I did find that as growing up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. But when I would start reading, I could read quite fast, I could remember things well, I could articulate things nicely. So it somehow settled down in my mind that yes, I could say life is unfair. I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. That's true. But then I could say that I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability either. So in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair. Sometimes it's unfair to us, sometimes we get worse than what we deserve, and sometimes we get better than what we deserve. So it's our choice what we will focus on. It's not just our choice, it's also the choice of people around us, how they guide us, how they help us. So sometimes bad things happen, but sometimes we also get the means to deal with those bad things. And if we get fixate on either the bad thing that happened, or we get focus on the means that we got to face those bad things. So the Pandavas, although they are great devotees and everything is great about them, but still they also face difficulties. And that brings me to the next part. What is the acronym we are discussing? Protect. So P was what? Providence. Providence. We discussed providence. Now R is representatives. That God sometimes acts through us to protect us, not necessarily by miraculous interventions, although He's quite capable of doing that. Generally, God protects through more ordinary kind of means. Can you go ahead? Let's read the next paragraph.
Bless me, O Lord, so that I do not sink into despair. Let me not conclude that my finite vision of the situation is the final vision of the situation.
Yes. You know, you should forget everything else from this talk. This one point. Probably one of the most important things for our spiritual growth is that we don't equate our finite vision with the final vision. Now, this not equating our finite vision with the final vision, we could call this humility, we could call this curiosity. But whatever we call it, this is the foundation of faith. That I have a picture of the situation. It's not that the picture I have is false, but it is not complete. There is a bigger story being unfolded. So now in the case of the Pandavas, what was the next danger that they faced? The next danger was the house of life. So then the Pandavas' hope was, see, life is very complex. And we can never know when we take a decision whether it is the right decision or the wrong decision. Sometimes some decisions may be made with good intentions and good reasoning also, but the decision turns out to be wrong. Like a doctor may have a particular case and doctor may say, okay, we can try chemotherapy or we can try less intrusive therapy for this cancer. And both the results are more equal in terms of the past research. You try one and it doesn't work. Then what do you do? then try something else. Now sometimes, can you sue the doctor for that? Maybe you can, sometimes you cannot. It's just the intent was good. So generally when you want to decide something, what is the right thing to do, that there are three factors to decide that right thing. There is the content of what we do. There is the intent with which we do it. Was the doctor's intention simply to prolong the disease of the patient so they could make more money out of it? And then there is the effect. The intent, content and effect. So this is, like to use the word ice for this. Ice is like stops the flow. So if you are suddenly rushing into some action, put some ice over there so that you can think about it calmly. So what is my intent? Is my intent good? Is what I am doing well thought out? And then sometimes after the action gives a result, then we are able to, okay, this was not the right thing to do. So now, when Bhima came back, he wanted to beat Duryodhana alive. They bound him. How dare you try to poison me? Who do you think you are? But Yudhishthira said, you don't have any evidence, it will just be your word against his word. So, best is, and we are new over here, we don't know who will support us, who will not support us. We don't want to split up. Maybe it's just little insecure. Just be careful and let it go. If you look at brothers, general or siblings, you can say, it's very difficult to think of a pair of siblings who were as different as Yudhishthira and Bhima. Yudhishthira, both of them were Kshatriyas, but Yudhishthira was more like a Brahman Kshatriya. Brahman Kshatriya means he was more interested in wisdom, he was more interested in peace. One was bending backward to avoid conflict. And Bhima was a Kshatriya. Kshatriya means you could say he was a Kshatriya squared. He would be looking for an opportunity to fight. And in this case, what happened? Because Yudhishthira was elder, Bhima listened to him. But unfortunately, rather than that pacifying Duryodhana, what did he do? He planned a bigger scheme. Earlier it was only trying to kill Bhima, now he wanted to kill the entire family. Okay, warriors have some fighting against each other, sometimes there are duels that could happen. But here he planned to kill even their mother, who had never harmed him in any way. It was horrendously cold-blooded and evil. Now in this case, what happened was, how did the Pandavas survive? Vidura gave them some warning. Vidura made various arrangements for them. So Vidura, what did he do? He first, in a coded language, he warned Yudhishthira that there's going to be some danger over there. Then he arranged for a tunnel maker to be over there. Then he arranged for a boatman to be over there. And then the Pandavas, the house was going to be burnt. Before Virochan could burn it, the Pandavas themselves set on fire and they escaped from the tunnel. So, and then when they escaped from the tunnel, Vidura had arranged for a boatman. So now again, it's again a matter of choice. Like they could have seen, what kind of family are we a part of? Now our own uncle wants to kill us. Now, okay, Duryodhana's poisoning might have been Duryodhana's poison Bhima might have been a one-time attempt. Or like a solitary attempt. Like there are terrorists, they have, what is the two words for it? Some terrorists are called lone wolves. Lone wolves, like one terrorist alone does the attack. And there are terrorists who attack in gangs. So now, Bhima attempted to poison Duryodhana. So Duryodhana attempted to poison Bhima could have been said a lone wolf kind of thing. Maybe Dhritarashtra did not know about it. But to build a whole palace and make it of inflammable material and then have the Pandavas sent over there. Now, who all was in this plan? Now, the Pandavas survived, but they could have become very resentful. Now, what kind of family is this? This whole family want to kill us. Now, our father has died and we came here for support. We came here for protection. And so the whole family out to kill us. But instead of fixating on the bitterness of Dhritarashtra and Duryodhana how to kill them, they were grateful that Vidura was there to protect them. So, when we talk about God's protection, there are two ways extreme we can look at it. You know, God's protection can be only through God. That means God will come in some miraculous ways and He will protect us. So only through God. Or the other is only through representatives. So these are both, if you consider pendulum, they are extremes. It is generally God's protection is God through representatives. So if we pray to God and we expect that God will miraculously appear and protect us, it can happen, but that's exceptional, that's rare. If you look at the many dangers the Pandavas faced, Krishna's miraculous intervention was exceptional, not the norm. So if we consider, I was in America a few years ago, and one boy came to me and he said, "I'm an atheist." I said, "Okay." See, most people when they say they're atheists, I have met very, very few philosophical atheists. Most people are psychological atheists. What do you mean by that? Philosophical atheist means somebody actually read a book propagating atheism, and they thought about it intellectually, and they decided, this is what makes most sense in life. It is more that psychological atheism means people had bad experiences with religion. People had bad experiences with religious people primarily. Maybe they're too restrictive, too judgmental, too fanatical. And then afterwards they might read some books about atheism and they might find that very convincing. So most people are more psychological atheists than philosophical atheists. So then I asked this boy, okay, so what turned you toward atheism? So he said, when I was born in a Christian family, and my parents, both of them, when I was 5, they had gone out a car, and the car was hit by a drunk driver. Both of them died. And it's just, they were religious. I used to go to church, but after that, why did God let this happen to me? Why did God do this to me? I just gave up faith in God. Now he was in one of the top universities in America. I said, "I'm so sorry this happened to you, but you have come a long way. How did you come to this university?" So he said, after that I went into foster home, and for almost 7 years I was in different foster homes. When I was 12, I was adopted by a very good family, and they cared for me, they encouraged me to study, they facilitated me, and that's how I am. So I was and then I asked him, what is the percentage of kids who at the age of 12 get adopted? So he said it's extremely low. Generally parents want to adopt kids who are much smaller. They want to have the joy of raising a child, they want to create good impressions in the child. So then I said, okay, are you being fair to God? He said, what do you mean? He said, when your parents passed away, you said that, why did God do this to you? But when you got these foster parents, these adoptive parents, to good care of you, you said that you are lucky. So either you attribute both to God or attribute both to luck. That we say that God is not fair to me, so I don't believe in God. But then are we being fair to God? Yes, in our life there will be some people who are mean to us, sometimes people leave us, it's terrible. But some others come to us. So for us, ultimately, faith is always going to be a matter of choice. Which is the evidence we focus on? There will be evidence which will challenge our faith, and there will be evidence which will strengthen our faith. It's ultimately for us to choose. Which evidence will I focus on? So, I never thought like that, if you think about it. So, the thing is, that the Pandavas could say, what kind of world is there where our own family tries to burn us alive? They could have saw that. They also saw that, okay, in that family there is one person who cares for us. And Vidura took great risk for them. If Duryodhana had gone so far to try to kill the Pandavas and their mother, Duryodhana could very easily have killed Vidura also. And Vidura knew that. And he took all that risk for them. So for each one of us, this faith is always going to be a matter of choice. Which evidence do we focus on? Now, as science has progressed, science can point us toward God or it can point us away from God also. If you look at how rains occur, it's an amazing thing. The clouds are like a massive mobile airborne water tank made of aircraft-proof technology. If the Twin Tower designers could not make aircraft-proof technology, an entire airplane can go through cloud and there's practically no leakage. So it's filled with water, it rains. So now somebody will look at this and say, hey, there must be some higher plan, there must be some higher intelligence behind all this. Now an atheist will say, okay, if you say that God arranged for clouds so that living beings could get rains, then why does it rain on the oceans? The answer is, it rains on the oceans so that atheists can ask this question and stay atheistic. Why? It is not just being flippant. The point over here is, the world's evidence will always be split. The world will never give us evidence consistently to strengthen our faith. But now, what falls on the ocean that is there, but water comes on the land, that is also there. If you go to a house which has like a castle with 100 rooms in it, and say 70 rooms in that are very neat and tidy, 30 rooms are not completely a mess. Now we could say that the 70 rooms are tidy, there must be some caretaker over it. Or we could look at the 30 rooms that are untidy and say there is no caretaker over it. Now, which is true? When the fact that 70 rooms are tidy, it means there has to be a caretaker. But it is ultimately a matter of which evidence we focus on. If we look at dangers that befall us in our life, and that's the basis on which we decide, okay, why did this happen to me or why did that happen to me? In our life, we often look for gifts in life. Some good thing happens to us, we may say this is God's grace in my life. And it's good to look at it like that. However, sometimes in looking for the gifts in life, we may forget to look at the gift of life. Life itself is a gift. Life itself is a miracle. That the fact that so many things can go wrong, the fact that we are alive itself is a miracle. Probably most of us, whatever is our age, we know someone or the other who died before they came to our age. The fact that we are alive, that itself is a significant miracle. So if we are alive, that itself is a gift, and that can point a thoughtful person towards God. So this is representatives. Now, what is the acronym we are discussing? So, now O is omnipotence. This is where sometimes God performs miracles. So representatives means God acts through normal means. God acts through people to protect us, to help us. Omnipotence, so for example, when Draupadi was being disrobed, at that time Krishna extended her cloth. That is Krishna exhibiting his omnipotence. When the Pandavas were in the forest and Durvasa Muni came to ask them for food after the Draupadi had eaten, and the Rakshya Patra would not produce any food. So then Krishna took a little bit of morsel of food, and by eating that food, all the Pandavas, all the sages and his disciples were satisfied. They felt full completely. So Krishna can sometimes perform miracles. Now quite often in devotional literature or in religious literature, these miracles are talked about quite frequently. However, in our tradition, the miracles are not what is regularly emphasized. Because miracles are exceptional. And even with the miracles, there are other things which have to be done. So even when you look at miracles, you may say that, okay, Draupadi's dishonoring was stopped by Krishna. But why did Krishna not stop the whole gambling match from happening? Krishna would have prevented everything from going wrong. So the thing is, Krishna exhibits his omnipotence sometimes. And when Krishna exhibits his omnipotence, either it can create faith in us. Or rather, conviction. It can create conviction in us that Krishna will protect in some way or the other. Or it can create the expectation that Krishna should protect in this way all the time. Now, if it strengthens the conviction, that is good. If it increases our expectation, that is not good. Because the expectation may not be fulfilled. It is Krishna intervened at that one particular time. But it is not that the Pandavas were constantly expecting this to happen. After Krishna saved them from Durvasa Muni's plight, it is not the Pandavas said, okay, in future Krishna will keep protecting all. The Pandavas in the forest, they were practicing. They were strengthening their skill with weapons. So that brings me to the next part. What is it? Now P-R-O-T. Yes. Now P is teaching. So teachings means that there are times, so for example Arjuna in the battlefield, before he has to face the war, he's confused on what is the right thing to do. So remember I talked about protection is sometimes bad things happen to us and sometimes bad things happen through us. So Krishna's teachings, they protect us from we doing bad things in life. Sometimes bad things happen to us, but if we ourselves react in unhealthy ways, we end up making things far worse. Krishna's protection can come through his teachings. See, life is tough. We all face situations that are tough in life. But many times what happens is, when these situations are tough, so nothing bad happens in our life. See, our life is quite a little bit ups and downs. There'll be ups and downs, but situations are reversible. Like sometimes today we have a bad day, maybe we have a bad week, but next week is better. Situations are reversible. The main time the situations gives rise to emotions. And the emotions can be much stronger. Now these emotions are also reversible. One day we feel terrible and the next day we feel okay, not so bad. But if we are too much controlled by our emotions, then under the spell of the emotions, we may take decisions. And those decisions can be irreversible. Sure. So, what happens is that, say, somebody is going through a bad patch in their life. And one thing goes wrong, second thing goes wrong, third thing goes wrong, fourth thing goes wrong. And it's natural to feel disheartened, to feel depressed, to feel dejected. But sometimes people feel, my life is itself valueless. Somebody says, let me end my life itself. But that is an irreversible decision. Sometimes a relationship goes through a bad patch, I just end this relationship. No, we all go through difficulties in life. So for us, what Krishna's teachings do is, that Krishna's teachings, they create breaks. If they create barriers or breaks like this, that if we are understanding Krishna's teachings, the situations won't affect our emotions so much. If we understand that Krishna is in charge, yes, life is tough, life can sometimes seem unfair, but Krishna is in charge. Situations themselves won't lead to strong emotions happening. And even if strong emotions come up, what will happen is, we will have a sense that let me not act in a way that creates troubles, that makes situations worse. So, our decisions will be wiser, our decisions will not be so short-sighted. So Krishna's teachings, they help us in those two ways. Among many ways, specifically focusing on this. If Arjuna chooses not to fight, not fighting that war at that particular time is going to have terrible consequences that will go across for generations. Those emotions that he's feeling right now, those emotions will come and go. But the consequences of acting under the spell of emotions can be very severe. So how do situations not affect our emotions? And how does emotions not affect our decisions? Situations don't affect our emotions to the extent we have Shraddha. We have faith. The situation is terrible, but Krishna is in charge. So we may feel fear, naturally we may feel anxiety, we may feel shock, but that won't be the only emotions in us. In our this is our consciousness. There will be fear, but there will be remembrance of Krishna also. And that remembrance of Krishna, that Krishna consciousness, will be bigger than fear. And even if the emotions are very strong, sometimes we feel terrible. But there is dharma. Dharma means there is a sense of duty, a sense of responsibility, a sense of boundaries. That no matter what happens, this is something which I will never do. So, that dharma, it does many things, but one of the things it does is creates a sense of boundaries. Like we all draw a line somewhere. Whatever I do, no matter how bad a situation is, this is a line I'm not going to cross. We all have that. For example, in office, there could be politics. And politics means that, okay, you try to network with this person, try to speak a little bit bad about that person, try to get into the good books of that person. And all that's not a good part of life, but that's true. It's just unfortunately there. But even among people who may be materialistic, they have their lines. Okay, I may badmouth a colleague, but I'm not going to spread rumors about his wife or his daughter. No, that's the line I'm going to draw. So everybody has certain lines. In many ways, our character, our culture is determined by the lines that we have. So fear of God. So when from situations to emotions, that emotions dominating us, that can be reduced by if we have faith in God. But if we don't have faith in God, at least have fear for God. That these kind of actions are not meant to be such in our lives. So that dharma, that helps us. It keeps us within boundaries. In many ways, to know what is the character of a person, it is what do we do when they are provoked. Everybody gets angry. Maybe some people will get angry, they will yell. They may use a little harsh words. Some people, when they get angry, they may start using swear words. Horrible, obscene words. Some people may start raising their hand. Some people may pick up a knife. Some people may pick up a gun. The President of America or President of Russia, they can nuke an entire country also. So there are different boundaries. How all the wars have been going on till recently, but good census prevailed, nobody has used nuclear weapons. There are some lines which should not be crossed. So a sense of the teachings of the Lord through faith in God and fear of God. They help us to ourselves not do bad things. That is, protect. Yeah.
As you explain here, the emotions are irreversible.
No, emotions are reversible.
Emotions are reversible. So that kind of the same situation happened on the better, right? So Arjuna was having a high intensity and the peak of his emotions. So that's why he was not able to take a decision.
Right.
And also the dharma was the part as the teaching of the Krishna. So in our situation, the Krishna was present there and he was teaching him. Still he was not able to take the decision. He do it badly after so many instructions. So in our life, how can we
We need good association. We have Krishna teaching in the form of his words. But if you see in the Bhagavad also, Krishna does not create a culture of dependence on him. See, if Krishna had made Arjuna dependent on his guidance, Krishna didn't have to speak the whole Bhagavad Gita at all. Krishna would have finished the whole Bhagavad Gita in 6 words. What are the 6 words? I am God. Obey me. Fight. Bhagavad Gita Sampurna. Krishna would have done that. Krishna is actually not telling Arjuna, you reject your intelligence and replace it with my guidance. God's guidance is not meant to replace our intelligence. It is meant to refine and reinforce our intelligence. That's why Arjuna asks questions, Krishna gives answers. And there's much philosophical and ethical reasoning in the Bhagavad Gita. So that's how when we study the Gita, Krishna is not personally there for us. But if you see in the Bhagavad Gita also, there are many incidents in the subsequent Mahabharata war. It's not that Krishna is constantly there with Arjuna. Or rather, Krishna is there with Arjuna. It's not that Krishna is making decisions for Arjuna. Arjuna is his own person, Arjuna is making his own decisions. And at some major critical points, Krishna intervenes and says, Arjuna, don't do this. That's not that Krishna is taking over Arjuna's sense of agency. Krishna puts Arjuna's sense of agency. So,
He empowers.
that's the next point we'll talk about. But that is slightly different. The teachings of Krishna, Krishna's teachings, and our intelligence. What is the relationship between the two? They are not meant to replace our intelligence. You are a fool, you don't think at all, just listen to me. That's not. That is the pathway to fanaticism. If we think that religion is meant that we outsource our intelligence to someone else, then what will happen is, then that person will manipulate us. That's how. There's one prayer in this prayers book. I say, no, God, make me a spiritual fruit, not a religious nut. So within that, the people who just outsource their intelligence to someone else. So what God does is, He refines. Refine means to see subtler realities. And He reinforces. Refine and reinforce our intelligence. That's what the Gita does for us. So till now, we are discussing PRO. What it was about is that what happens to us, how do we see the hand of God in the danger that we face. But the dangers that we face are also in terms of what we are going to do. So sometimes because of our impulses, we may make some wrong decisions. So Krishna's teachings protect us from that. But that brings us to the next point you're in protect. E is empowerment. Now, empowerment, what does this mean? That, see, the Gita's message is not that God is the hero and you just watch him doing wonderful things. The Gita's message is, Arjuna, you become the hero. You rise and you fight. And Krishna says, I will empower you. So the empowerment comes at various degrees. That when we say it's empowered, at a basic level, the empowerment is in terms of talent. That Arjuna has extraordinary archery ability. Bhima has mace fighting ability, Bhima has physical strength. So our talents that we have, these are also gifts from God. And using our talents to protect ourselves, or to protect our loved ones, to do our responsibility. That is also God empowering us. That is God's gift to us. So God often protects us not just through what others do for us, but what we are able to do for ourselves. But here there are three things. There is talent, and after that, there is environment. Talent is not of much use unless there is the environment where that talent can be developed. So, when Arjuna was in the forest, his father taught him a little bit of archery. But then when he came to Drona's Gurukul, that's where he flourished. So everybody who has talent, for them to get into that environment is also a great blessing. There are some people who might have great talent, and there are some authors, they can discover their writing ability till the age of 60 or something like that. And they wrote a few books in the last few years of their life, but that's all that they could do. So Krishna's blessings comes in the form of like Hanumanji. Hanuman is having his hands folded, if you see the typical image. That folded hands shows his Bhakti. But in those folded hands, he has his mace. And that mace indicates Shakti. So in our service to the Lord, Bhakti and Shakti both need to be together. That Shakti is given by the Lord also. So Arjuna had the talent, he got the environment. But talent and environment alone are not enough. So talent is what we naturally get from our birth. Environment is what society provides us. So after that, what we need is commitment. We need the commitment to be able to actually translate that talent in the right environment into achievement. Without commitment, there are many people probably who know they're very talented, but they are more like wasted talents. Because they don't consistently focus on things. So each of these together, they lead to empowerment. So Arjuna was not just talented, Arjuna was not just in the right environment. One of his names is Rakesh. Rakesh is one who stays awake at night. And why did he stay awake? It was that his guru would teach him in the daytime and he would practice archery at night. And it is not that Arjuna satisfied, okay, I graduated, that's enough. I was the best student in my college. Arjuna was continuously learning. And this was the decisive difference between Arjuna and Karna in the final war. See, Karna learned in Parshuram's Gurukul, Arjuna learned in Drona's Gurukul. In one sense, Karna got a better guru, because Parshuram was the guru of Drona. But Arjuna subsequently performed austerities. When he was in the forest, he went to the Himalayas, he performed severe tapasya and he got celestial weapons. Now Karna knew that he had displeased his guru, and because he had displeased his guru, Parshuram had cursed him. That at your most important moment in life, you will forget the mantra that I gave you, forget the weapon that I gave you. So those mantras he was going to forget. But he could have prepared for it by doing more tapasya, getting some other mantras, getting some other shastras, weapons. But he did not do that. So Arjuna, his empowerment was not just, Krishna raised his hand and suddenly he was empowered. The human beings have to endeavor for this. So sometimes you may see some people just a spectacular talent, and that's great. But for the talent to be developed, a lot more is required. And one person who has great talent, like a gift in one is a gift for everyone. If one person has a sweet singing voice, when they sing, it can bring joy to so many hearts. One person is a good speaker, and they can speak and inspire and transform so many people. One person is a good artist, what they can paint can lift the consciousness of so many people. One person is a good technologist, good scientist. What they can do can benefit so many people. But for that benefit to happen, that person has to apply themselves. So, God often works by empowering human beings. Arjuna Krishna addresses us, Asmat Tabuttishta Yasho Vaswa Jitva Shatrun Bhokshvarajam Samriddham Mayai Vaiteni Hatha Purvameva Nimittamatram Bhavasau Vyasachi. Sauvyasachi is acknowledging Arjuna's special talent. That you are so good, Arjuna, that you are ambidextrous. You can fight the archery with both sides, both hands equally well. So Arjuna was also committed. So the Gita does not teach an ethos of dependence on God in the sense of passivity. Oh, God will protect me, I don't need to do anything. No. We depend on God, but we also use our ability. And we see our ability not as separate from God, but our ability as a gift of God. So this is the empowerment that Krishna gives. And if we have empowerment in a particular area, then we need to develop that empowerment. We need to learn and develop those particular skills. If you want to serve in a particular area, we need to be good. It is not that Arjuna was a mediocre archer and said, Krishna, I am your devotee, you protect me. You ensure my success. No, Arjuna became the best archer that he could. And that's how he was able to do some spectacular service for the Lord. So that brings us to the second last point. C is challenges. So challenges are the times when we don't feel God's protection. Isn't it? But how does Krishna protect us from challenges? It is in the time of challenges. When we are trying to do something and something doesn't work. When we face obstacles. That is the challenges, they prompt us to change our conception of what is important, of what really matters in life. Of what matters. I'll give one metaphor to illustrate this principle. That have any of you seen a bird coming out of a shell? We all know that happens. Yeah. But it's that actually phenomenon. Many of you have not seen that. I was in Florida. I saw it as on a devotee's farm. They're walking along, and there was this egg just on the ground, and the egg was shaking from inside. And it's observed, and then the bird would crack. The bird would push from inside, the shell will crack, and then the wing will come out. And the wing came out, and then the shell snapped back. And the shell's edge, which is cracked, is sharp. And it snapped back, and you could feel the baby bird inside mincing in pain, almost trembling and shivering. And the baby will push again, and somewhere else the egg will crack, and maybe a leg comes out. And the key shell cracks, and the baby bird starts bleeding. But the natural urge at that time is, okay, can I ask this friend, can I just break the shell? No, we can let the baby bird come out. So never do that. So why? Because we may get the bird out of the shell. But it is through the process of breaking the shell that the baby bird becomes strong. And through the process of breaking the shell, the baby bird's body develops enough so that it can fly in the sky. Otherwise, the bird will come out, but the bird will not have strength enough to fly. It will be out of the shell, but then there will be bigger danger. The predator and other animals will come and just devour it. It will not be for another. But when it can fly, it can survive. So what happens is, when the baby bird is in the shell, for the baby bird, what matters is, I just want to get out of the shell. But for nature and for God, there's something else that matters more. Not just get out of the shell, but develop strength enough to fly in the sky. So similarly for us, when we face problems, we have, okay, this is the problem. Why does this problem go away from my life? We are all caught in a particular shell, and we want to break free from that shell. But we think, okay, why is this shell not getting broken? Now God may have a bigger purpose. He doesn't just want us to be free from the shell, He wants to become stronger for life outside the shell. And that's why, rather than when the challenges come, we can turn towards God in two ways. Krishna, fix my problems. Or we can turn to Krishna, fix me, so I can fix my problems. So, now if we go in the first mood, yes, Krishna can help us and Krishna may do it. But this may not always help us. But fix me so I can fix my problems. Krishna, I do not know why am I going through this. Krishna, I do not know what your plan for me is. But I have faith that there is a plan. So please guide me through the situation. Please give me the intelligence how you want me to act through the situation. Or this is what I think I should do, Krishna. If it is not the right thing, please inform me. So that way, what happens for us is, the challenges come. If our problems are not being solved, that doesn't mean that God is not there, God doesn't care. This God is preparing us for a bigger purpose. And that's why that challenge is not going away right now. The Pandavas, they went through so many difficulties. When they went through all these difficulties, then eventually when Yudhishthira was enthroned as the king, he was not just a virtuous king, he was a virtuous king who was grounded in awareness of reality. And then he was able to rule much, much better through all the lessons that he had learned through life. And then the last part is, protect is PROTC. T is time. Sometimes it just takes time. Despite the best efforts that we go through, it is going to take time. That some externals will take time for it to change. The Pandavas, although they were devoted, still 12 years they had to be in the forest. 1 year they had to be in the Ajnatwas. And the Ajnatwas was especially humiliating for them. Why? Because if somebody is well known and those people have to live like fugitives, unknown completely. And they lived that. So sometimes Krishna's plan just takes some time. And how do we go through that time? That's the last part. I'll conclude with this, that for us, initially when we go through life, the world is big for us. And Krishna is small. And the world is a big thing means, in life I want success, I want fame, I want glory. And Krishna is there. Krishna will help me in that. If he helps me, is good. Otherwise, doesn't matter. But I had an uncle who, when I was introduced to Bhakti about 30 years ago, I started telling everyone about it. So, about Bhakti. So his uncle said, I have a very good relationship with God. I said, really? Okay. I had never seen him go to a temple or do anything religious. I think I with God. What is that relationship? Mutual non-interference. He is happy there, I am happy here. So many people think God is very small. But what happens for us? That as we grow spiritually, as we practice bhakti, spiritual growth means the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger for us.
Haribol.
That means that if the world will always have ups and downs, but if the world itself is small, the world's ups and downs will also become small for us. And so even if bad things are happening, as long as Krishna is the big reality for me, then my connection with Krishna, my remembrance of Krishna, that will always give me joy. That will always give me strength. And this is where, with time, we become internally joyful. Because we are connected with Krishna. In remembrance of Krishna, we get joy.
Jai.
Sampade Vipade Bhakti Thakur said, there's happiness or distress in my life. He said, as long as remembering Krishna, that's what matters. Sukhataram aparam na jatu jani, haricharan smaram rati. There's no happiness greater than the joy of remembering the Lord. So gradually, by our practice of bhakti, like I said, the evidence of the world will always be split. Sometimes we feel Krishna is there and protecting me, sometimes Krishna, where is Krishna? But for a devotee, the ultimate evidence is not in the world. The ultimate evidence is in the heart. It is not that problems don't come. It is that when problems come, the fact that I am not getting shaken, I am not getting shattered, I am not getting crushed by those problems, that's because Krishna is holding me from within. That we experience such peace and such strength and such joy from within. It's a miracle. Maybe before I was practicing bhakti, before Krishna was a part of my life, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, if this problem had come, I would have been crushed by the problem. But now the problem has come, and it's a problem still, but it's not that big a problem. So the evidence of our heart is the ultimate evidence. Pratyaksha vagamam dharmyam susukam kartum. So every day when we do our sadhana bhakti, when we do our puja, when we do our japa, it's not just a ritual that we want to get done. Every day, at least for a few moments, we try to bring ourselves into that awareness that Krishna is a bigger reality than this world. In the world, okay, this person did like this, and this happened in politics over there, this happened in this thing over there, so many things keep happening. And they can seem very big. But if for a few moments we remind ourselves, or we get into that awareness, not just intellectual remembrance, but more experiential awareness, that there is a bigger reality. And sometimes we get these experiences when there's a very sweet kirtan, there's a beautiful darshan, and there's a very immersive katha going on, or we go to a sacred place, and the ambience of that place itself, it transports us to a different level of reality. So those memories, when actually those incidents, when Krishna becomes a bigger reality for us, we keep that in our mind. And then with time, what will happen is Krishna will become bigger and bigger, the biggest reality for us. If we are looking for protection at the body level, that is not going to happen. For the at the level of the body will improve, but eventually it's going to deteriorate. From birth, we rise upward at the level of the body. Maybe in our youth, middle age, we are at our best. But eventually, the body is going to deteriorate, there is going to be death. But what happens for a devotee is that the consciousness rises upward and keeps rising upwards. In the consciousness, if it rises upward means we come closer and closer to Krishna, we become Krishna conscious. So through everything in life will have its ups and downs, but our consciousness can keep going upwards. At the end of our life, when for a devotee death comes, at death we don't go away from home. It's not that we leave our home and we go to a crematorium. Rather, at death we go home. Because if Krishna has become the bigger reality for us, then going to Krishna is going home for us. And it's not that we need to go to home only at that time. Even while we are alive, if we are practicing Bhakti earnestly, then Krishna becomes our home for us right now in this life also. And that's how we experience Krishna's protection, not just in the evidence of what happens in the outside world, or in the evidence of what we are able to do, but in the evidence of what we experience in our own hearts, irrespective of what happens in the outer world. So can you just read the last sentence? There. Let's focus on this. This is the last paragraph. Who would like to read? Yes, please.
Is this the last one?
Yes, the last one.
When all options seem to be losing options, you, my Lord, remain the ever-winning option.
Yes, that is, the world does not give any option in the outer world, but Krishna always remains the winning option for us. So, to summarize what we discussed about, our topic was on perceiving God's love, perceiving Krishna's love. I focused on that love coming in the form primarily of protection. So, I discussed about the acronym PROTECT. P was what?
Providence.
Providence. So here because in this discussion it was about Bhima being protected. Bhima's poisoning. So we can look at what bad happened to us, or we can look at it's always a matter of choice. The bad that happened, or the good that helped us to deal with what bad happened. Good to deal with it. When Bhima was poisoned, but we looked at what was, that he also was saved from that poison in some way. So life is unfair, but in the big picture, life is fair and unfair. We can look at, it's a choice whether we look at how it is unfair or we look at how it is fair in the big picture. There are many different kinds of distresses. So we discuss how there can be adversity, where something bad happens to us, and there is atrocity, where something bad is done to us, and then there is agony, where we ourselves have to do bad things. So we discuss how Krishna can protect us in various ways in all these situations. R was representatives. So here we discussed how it was the Pandavas who were protected by Vidura. So when Vidura protected, again it's a matter of choice. Because as I said, where is God when I have been given an uncle like Vidura? Where is God? Because you have been given an uncle like Vidura also. So it's a matter of you have to choose. So when we see the God's protection, it's only through that only God protects us or only people protect us. It is rather, it is God who protects us through people. So we look at those who have helped us and we see that as God's hand. O was what?
Omnipotence.
Omnipotence. So here Krishna comes and performs some miracles. We discussed this in the Draupadi is being dishonored and Durvasa is saved. So Krishna can do this, but this is rare. And that should not become our expectation. This is what Krishna should do for him. Because if that becomes the expectation, then we will be set up for a disappointment. Because Krishna will act in his own way. He was in
Teachings.
teaching. So now the first four, the first three were more about what happens to us. They are about to us. And next are about what happens through us. So teachings means Krishna helps us, that his teachings ensure that when situations are bad, we don't get into the situations themselves are reversible. But from there, our emotions that come are also reversible. And but from there, what happens sometimes? Irreversible decisions may be taken. So among the many gifts that we get from Krishna's teachings is that here we get faith so that the emotions don't become so strong. And then there is a sense of dharma by which there is a certain set of boundaries, certain boundaries here. This is something which I should not do. And that's how we are protected. E was empowerment. So in one sense, inside us there is a negative and there is a positive. The negative is the destructive impulses which are there inside us. So those Krishna protects us through his teachings. The empowerment is whatever abilities we have. In the Gita, Krishna doesn't talk directly about archery. But Krishna gives us the empowerment by which we can use those abilities properly. There are talk of three things. Talent. Having talent itself is a gift. Then having the environment in which the talent can develop, that's a bigger gift. And then if we ourselves have the commitment, then that will help us to fully use the talent and translate it to achievement. So empowerment comes at all three levels. So we see how Arjuna himself, Arjuna's archery, he was empowered. Now, if we consider that the talent, you could say Karna also had the talent, Karna also had the environment, Karna also had the commitment. Now, of course, Arjuna exhibited greater commitment, learning further, not living in royal luxury. And then C was challenges. Challenges, what they do is, they force us to look for something bigger in life. If we are inside a shell, we just want to break free from the shell. But what Krishna wants us to do is, Krishna wants to prepare us for the life beyond the shell. So, it either fix our issues, fix our problems, or fix us so that we can fix our problems. So Krishna wants to fix us. So instead of expecting this, we can more expect the challenges are also means for us to do. And lastly is time. Sometimes we may go through difficult phases, that doesn't mean Krishna is not there caring for us. Through those difficult phases, actually, Krishna is drawing us closer to him. So when this is happening, it is for us, don't just wait for things to change, rather change our own conception. Initially, the world is very big for us, and Krishna is small. But what happens is, the world becomes small and Krishna becomes big for us. Then even when things are not changing, what will happen is in our heart we'll see that things are changing. Despite the problem being there, we won't be so affected by the problem. And ultimately, at the level of the body is going to fall. But if we are devoted to Krishna, we won't go away from home, rather we will go home when our body finally falls. In this way, Krishna's protection is there for those who can see with the eyes of wisdom and devotion. Let's conclude by offering this prayer to Krishna once again. Let's close our eyes. With you, my Lord. Take the big afternoon. With you, my Lord. With you, my Lord. There are no dead ends. There are no dead ends. Thank you very much. Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai. Jai.
Jai. Hari.
Hare.
His Grace Chaitanya Charan Prabhu ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
So, I think it's already a long class. We have any questions? But I'll be here for some time if any of you have any questions. There are those 2 books which I have. I written about 30 books, out of which this is one of my latest books, Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad Gita. As you see, it has about 1. Can you do the books here, please? So it has 122 prayers inspired by verses from the first 6 chapters of the Gita. And many people told me that before they do their mantra chanting, this reading one prayer, looking at a picture of Krishna, helps them to calm and to center their mind. And there is also the accessible table of contents, so that there are one line summary of the prayers. There's one line summary like a spiritual devotional affirmation. So you can look at whatever is your particular prayer need at a particular time. If you are feeling lonely or abandoned, if you are feeling spiritually dry or disconnected, if you are feeling lost and directionless in life, if you are feeling the cravings becoming unbearable. So there are prayers for various occasions, and you could read those as per your need. This is a book published by HarperCollins. Nowadays there's a lot of interest in the corporate world on learning life lessons and leadership lessons from ancient texts. Stoicism from Greece has become quite popular, Gita from Japan has become popular. So HarperCollins wanted me to present something on the Bhagavad Gita. So like I was drawing some simple diagrams. These are conceptual graphics over here, which illustrate the concepts. There are And I have presented this whole book as a conversation between two characters, both in the corporate world, one who knows the Gita, one who wants to know the Gita. So there are chapters on what I talk about, how to manage our emotions, how to not overreact in difficult situations, how to be mindful, especially the whole chapter on how to tap the power of our speech so that we can maximize the impact that it has on others. There's also a chapter on how to find our innate talents and develop those talents. So a lot of practical application of the Gita is there. It's also a good gift if you want to give your friends and colleagues who may not be ready to read the Gita directly. This can start their spiritual journey because it will be addressing their concerns and needs. So I will have some time to answer questions or to sign the books if you want. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.